Well, good afternoon and good morning, everyone. My name is Vanessa DeCuckoo, and I will be hosting your webinar today. I am here, I'm really excited, to show you a couple of things that would hopefully just make your life a little bit easier as you're going through our daily design process, right? So if you use any of our 2020 Office tools, you're in the right spot. I'm going to be talking about a few different things that hit different areas, but I hope that everybody's going to be able to walk away with at least one golden nugget, if you would. So before I jump into anything though, can you guys do me a favor and answer this quick poll question? Tell me, what 2020 Office software do you work with today? You can pick multiple. Maybe you work with Giza, Worksheet, and Visual Impression. Maybe you primarily work in Worksheet. Could be a little bit of everything. Oh yeah, I'm watching the numbers come in. Lots of Worksheet users, awesome, because that's actually where I'm going to start today. I'm going to show you a couple of cool things inside Worksheet just to help with really helping the client understand and see what your vision is. But then where are we at? Yeah, lots of CAP users, lots of Giza users, and of course Visual Impression. That's the main portion of today's session, but that's great. Thank you so much for that feedback. This really helps me kind of guide some of the things that I will point out. All right, but before I jump into the software, I have a couple announcements. These are really exciting. There's a lot going on right now. You would not believe all the different things that we've seen. I wish we could have seen you at NeoCon recently. That didn't happen, but it's all right because we've found so many other ways to collaborate and communicate with everybody. One of them, if you didn't see, there was a great article in the Business of Furniture a few weeks back. And if you missed it, you can jump over to our website, 2020spaces.com/BOF article. That's for Business of Furniture. And they interviewed our CEO and really talked about kind of where 2020 is as a company and where we're going. So kind of exciting to see some of the things that are in the works. And then also, and this is super awkward because I'm going to talk about myself. There's my face right on the screen. I was on a podcast recently. If you haven't checked out the Trend Report podcast, it was such a fun experience, but same kind of thing. We talked about the future. So Sid Meadows, phenomenal. He does a lot of articles on the Business of Furniture as well, but he's been doing a lot of interviews with people in the industry. And of course, I think we're all wondering, like, what's going on? How is everybody doing? What are manufacturers doing? What are designers doing? What are salespeople doing? What are our clients doing? And trying to stay on top of everything and maybe adjusting some of the methods that we're using to make sure that we're answering the questions the best we can. So anywho, all of that to say, check out these things. 2020spaces.com/trend report is a quick way to jump over to that podcast if you have time to take a look at that. And then looking ahead, so those two things happened recently, but coming up, if you've noticed, we just announced this on our social media, but you'll start getting some more notifications about this soon. We have a really exciting new virtual event coming up early September. So 2020spaces.com/2020connect is where you'll find all the information. You'll see a bunch of the presenters and the details are posted there as far as what's happening on each day. But imagine a kind of a little bit of a NeoCon, but virtual. Okay, so taking away all of those long lines of trying to get in the elevator, taking away the travel, and having just a really, really cool way to collaborate and work with everybody and look and see like what's going on, what's new, what's coming. Not only about 2020, but there's also going to be some continuing education too. So I'm really excited to announce some of our featured presenters. We'll have Lauren Cole from Herman Miller, and she is going to be presenting the future landscape of healthcare. I know that's a really, really hot topic right now. Avi Goldstein from Hertz Furniture is going to be talking about using furniture design to create effective learning environments. Really excited to have him as a part of it. I know we worked with him a couple of years at NeoCon, and everyone in our booth just fell in love with him. Just such a nice guy. Sid Meadows, you'll recognize his face because I just talked about him. He does the Trend Report podcast, but he's a business coach, and he does some really, really interesting things that focus on sales and kind of your own personal growth, but he's going to be discussing transforming your sales strategy to a post-COVID world. I mean, nothing else can be hotter topic than that. And then finally, Aquan Singleton from AIS. I'm really excited to have Aquan join us for this virtual event because he was actually invited to come and be part of an event we were going to host at NeoCon that didn't happen. So now we're coming back and he's going to be talking about staying productive and what the return to work safely plan really looks like. From a manufacturer's perspective, it's always interesting to see what kind of resources they have. So stay tuned. Look forward to those. Again, out on our website, 2020spaces.com/2020connect. You'll see all the dates and times for all of the sessions. And guaranteed there's going to be something that's going to be inspiring or exciting or something just to kind of keep up with what's going on out there. Considering all the things that are going on, one more update, catalog updates. This month, if you didn't notice, there were a few big updates that came out. Herman Miller added a new catalog, the GSA Commend catalog. Foam Core Commercial is a brand new catalog that was added to 2020, so you'll find that in Worksheet, CAP, and Giza. They're based right down the road from us here in West Michigan, like most of these guys. But in Steelcase, there's 2 new catalogs, a furniture residential and a residential furniture turnstone catalog. And KI also has 2 new catalogs and with the Wiggle Room product. I'm actually going to show in one of my renderings, I brought in some things from Wiggle Room. So if you haven't seen it, I think you'll get a kick out of it. So anywho, stay on top of all the latest and greatest. So that was a lot of updates in a real quick amount of time, but I have another question for you before I jump in. I would love to know what kind of suppliers, or are there any additional manufacturers that you would like added to 2020? Is there a main supplier that you specify a lot that you wish they had a catalog? Can you do me a favor and type in your response? Or a couple people threw that in the Q&A window. That's perfect too. You can send it in the Q&A as well. We're always connecting with more manufacturers and more suppliers out there. So if there's a specific one that you work with a lot, this really helps us make sure that we're offering the most, because we have over 200 manufacturers or catalogs that we have in the software, but it's amazing how many different suppliers there are out there in the world, right? You guys, thank you. This feedback is awesome. I see some lighting catalogs, some seating catalogs, some very specific brands, Fairfield Furniture, Fire King, Logiflex. All right. I think some of these I recognize. Some we might have some information in their catalog. Maybe it's not complete. We'll double check that. But thank you. We got like almost 40 responses. This is really good. Got full catalogs from Stylex, Davis, Sandler. David's asking for Compel. Awesome. This is really good feedback, guys. Thank you. So we are constantly working with different people, whether it's building out a full catalog with product or a supplier catalog with finishes, all those types of things. Definitely let us know when you've got a line that you were like, it'd be just so much easier to specify if I had everything right at my fingertips in software, right? We're going to kind of talk about why that's so important when we jump into the software too. Yes, I'm with you, David. I see Office Star. Yep, it looks good. Oh gosh, you guys, awesome. Really, really, really good feedback. So when we talk about all these different manufacturers and suppliers and why they're so important, everyone, when we look at a rendering, we see how exciting it can really be to imagine what that space could look like when you think of every finish and every detail. Now, as exciting and amazing as it would be to be able to do a rendering like you see on the screen, and I can't take credit for this. I got to give Jenna Kurtz credit for submitting this to our design awards earlier this year, our Design Inspiration Award contest, and she won one of the categories. But as you can see, this one pays attention to every detail, right? Furniture, finishes on every surface, architectural details, images out the window, all of those things. We'll get there. But as I go through today's presentation, I'm going to kind of approach it as slightly like a good, better, best. It might actually end up more like a good, a little bit better than that, a better, a best, and then of course knock your socks off, something like this. So bear with me as we kind of walk through some of those scenarios because there's so many of them out there. All right, one more question for you guys. Has anyone here on this call, have you ever outsourced a rendering project before? And that rendering project could have been something that's like a custom product from a manufacturer, or maybe it is a full space. I know that can really vary, but who here has outsourced their projects before for a rendering? Interesting. All right, I've got about 70, 80 people saying yes, 40, so 40 to 50 saying no. All right, this helps. Good, good. Now, of course, having a tool like Visual Impression, hopefully you feel like you're enabled to be able to offer a good visualization to support the project because you have a tool. But let's look at some of those ways and some of those things. And here's a couple of fun statistics, right? It's always interesting to look at. Okay, if you just look at some of these numbers, if we were to look at 2,500 pictures, so if people can remember the content of 2,500 pictures at about 90% accuracy, just 72 hours after looking at them for 10 seconds. So first impressions, that's immediately what I think of, is just being able to see that first impression. If a client gets a good idea of a space or idea of a concept, of course that can really help, but that sticks with them whether it's a real traditional presentation or not, I would say. Another fun statistic as we look at this, a year later, if you were still talking about those 2,500 images, the participants will still remember about 63% of those images. How wild is that? I think they're in the kind of the side of learning. I am from the training team, and we study and we look a lot at different learning styles. And I think a lot of us assume most designers are visual learners, but I think it's a pretty good assumption too that just in general, most people are more visual than anything, right? And then one last statistic. If we were to just sit here and talk instead of show cool slides and jump into the software live, we would only probably remember 10% of that material a couple days later. So that says a lot. When you can incorporate a visual, incorporate something that takes it beyond, there's something that just helps us associate that to a memory, right, kind of looking forward. So I probably don't have to talk you into it's worth taking the time to render or to show a visual of some things, right? So, but it's always a question of like, okay, really, how much time does it take to do these types of renderings? Like I said, we may look at getting to this end goal of a final complete rendering that has every detail, but I'm going to start kind of at the beginning too of individual products and looking at how to really make sure we're specifying and getting everything accurate individually too. When we get into these more complete spaces like this one, notice some of the things about this particular rendering from Alessandra, the detail in areas that are really kind of quick to give you a good impact. For instance, the fun image in the picture frame on the desk, okay, just cracks me up. But the thing that really impresses me the most is you see kind of like a mirror reflection or off to the left-hand side. I've seen a lot of people putting images within their renderings to help give kind of an illusion to maybe the next space, the next room, another area, thinking like kind of expanding beyond artwork. So anywho, kind of teasing you there as far as looking far, far beyond some of the traditional presentations that we've all done, right? All right, so I'm going to share my screen here, and we're going to jump over, and we're actually going to be looking live in the software. So let's jump over here, and you should be able to see my 2020 worksheet screen. So like I said, I'm going to start in Worksheet. I know that's not usually where you're going to begin with a full rendering, but for a everyday project, there's a lot of power behind some of the things that we can do in Worksheet. So for example, one of the lines I was talking about earlier that added some new catalogs was one of them in the KI catalog. And I think there was a, let me just type in a part number. There is a chair called the Sway Lounge chair. I think it's just kind of fun because it's super visual. All right, so if I'm looking for a product, now I cheated, I used quick search, I just typed in the part number, it brought me right to the part. I'm going to take a look at that part, and if you utilize the preview window, of course you can kind of look at it and get a sneak peek. But this particular catalog is a good example of one that's enriched, meaning it has finishes assigned to it, but it also gives you kind of an impression with some default finishes there. I may not want that color combination. I can put any combination I want, but I just need to bring the part in. So I just use drag and drop as a quick method to pull it into the worksheet. And let's say that we come in and we want to specify that product. We'll go ahead and spec this out, and I'm going to click a little quickly, just pick like the cool gray for the overall chair itself, pick the feet, and then when I get into the fabrics, I happen to pick the contrast one, so I can pick two colors, like a seat and a back. But let's go in and find, I don't know, I'm just going to kind of pick something here. Ooh, something bold. Let's go with red here. And then for the seat, we might pick something that's just a little bit different. Not quite what I was looking for, but let's jump in here. Okay, here's red with a little bit more detail to it. All right, so now that I've got this image, I can look at it here too, and I can zoom in and I can see that color combination well to kind of visually approve it, if you would. But let's finish this, and of course, however I left that image when I specified it is how it shows in that preview. So often I find that when we're trying to answer a question or validate something with a client, we're doing this really quick, but we might not be at the point where we're doing an official quote. Okay, so let's say that you're working with someone, whether it's the client or just someone on your team that has a question about this chair. The fastest way to show them what that chair looks like is to literally click on the preview so you get the big view. And I'm going to totally cheat. I could, of course, save this back from that previous window, but I'm going to go in and I'm going to use my snipping tool that's built right into Windows. So I just typed snip into my search, and I'm literally just going to snip this. Oh, that was interesting. That went right over to my CAD drawing that you don't get to see yet. Let me snip this here. Okay, so now I can just snip and pull this in. Okay, so snipping, I'm sure many of you guys are using this tool already. I shouldn't have to tell you a whole lot about it, but as you can see, it's a great way to just grab something that you want an image of. And then I'm not actually going to save this because I'm in a hurry. Okay, I want to pull this in, show it to the client or show it to my salesperson or whoever I'm working with. So let's just email it. Okay, right inside the snipping tool, there's a little email envelope. And when I click on it, it will literally open up an email. Okay, I had my Outlook open in the background, and so it's just ready to go. Now it pulls it in pretty big, but I can resize it a little bit, and I can change this and say, what do you think about this new sway chair? Super fast, super easy. Send it over to an email. Okay, so that's quick, down and dirty, simple. Now, when you do get to the point where you are presenting it in more of a formal quote, let's say that we fill this in, we put tables, we put some accessories, we've got other desking, whatever else is in this quote, there are reports that leverage those images more than others. So many of them say image in them, but the one that I probably use the most is the one called single item visualization. If I'm really looking for the visualization aspect, this one is built right into the standard reports, so you don't need to customize anything extra. But this is what it kind of looks like. It gives you a little bit of background, what it is, where it's from, what it looks like. Of course, this is still list. I haven't discounted it, all the finishes, and what we're looking at for total. Oh, and I forgot one option. But now that's a great way that I can check that or maybe catch that and realize, oh, there was one more thing to pick. But what a great way for a quick visual. Now, what if you come back and you say, well, Vanessa, it's pretty good, but it's not exactly. Like, what if I had a photo? What if I have some really great assets from my manufacturer because, so many of them spend a lot of time and money on their marketing with all of their images. So let's customize this ourselves. So I'm going to cheat. I'm going to jump out to the web, and I'm literally going to look for, that sway chair from KI. All right, we're just going to jump out to their website. So in this case, you're going to be going to your primary manufacturer, your supplier, wherever you can get a good image or a photo. And as you can see, there's a whole collection here. So let's say we want to borrow like this image. Now this entire image is probably a bit too much for what I'm looking for, only because within the worksheet, that image is very small, and that report, it's a medium-sized image, but I don't really need all of this. So maybe in this case, I will just snip out kind of the bit that I want. So I'm going to do a new image. And sorry, I have my snipping tool over on my second screen, so you didn't see me grab it, but I just said new snip. Here is that chair. Now in this case, I am going to save it just because I want to be able to import it over into my worksheet. Okay, so maybe this, I'll just call it the orange sway. Okay, have you ever gone out and looked for an image and brought it in yourself? Now, because I already have the product line in the worksheet, what I need to do is right-click and go to Properties. The properties will let you kind of get a good overview of many different things about that product, but the last tab is the visualization tab, where of course by default we're going to get our enriched image that we had before, but I can also load my own image in here. So if I take just a couple extra clicks and I load this, we'll pull this from my desktop. Here's my orange sway chair. Notice it just pulls in a JPEG or a bitmap file, so two pretty common file formats. I'll just say use this image. I know it looks pretty zoomed in, but it will auto-size to fit there. And if I go back to my reports, I'm just going to hit the refresh button on the report and refresh that to be able to get a quick view of what that looks like with a photo. Right, now, I know you're going to tell me, Vanessa, I don't have the time to do that. It's okay. Don't do that for everything. But there may be key things that really can have a good impact, whether maybe the manufacturer doesn't have an image. Maybe they don't have a color swatch to be able to show. I could pull anything in that I needed there to really show that off well. So imagine if you customize this report. I mean, you could really really impress somebody or take them to that next level where they truly understand where they're investing their money, right? Okay, so like I promised, this was just kind of the good option, to be able to pretty quickly get a quick visual, maybe take it up a notch, bring in your own visual if you wanted, no problem. So now this is where we're going to get a little bit better. Okay, so I'm going to jump back to Worksheet. And of course, you're going to tell me, well, Vanessa, be careful. You just really messed up this order because this says one color. That's a different color in the picture. What's right? It's okay. Let's go back to Properties and let's say, you know what, let's jump this back to the original visual that I had. I like to just set that a little bit to the side. There we go. So we're back to our red color scheme. So because this has two colors, maybe there's an upcharge for the grade of fabric that I selected. I really want to call that out to my client. But sometimes that gets lost in a small image like this. Maybe you'll see it more in visual impression. But in this case, if I have something like this where I know there's the cool gray finish, the back red, the seat red finish that are all very important to show, what if I did this? Oh, I was going to go to Properties again, but I can go even faster. Let's go back into Specify. And I want to go and look at, it was Cabaret and Lava were the two main colors. We could save Cool Gray too, but that's not as exciting. So when I go to Cabaret, I'm clicking that finish. And over here on the right, you notice you can see, of course, the bigger swatch of that image. What if we were to save that? Okay, so I'm just going to take this and save this to my desktop. This was Cabernet or Cabaret. You see where mind is right now. We can jump over and we can save the lava image. We'll throw this to my desktop. All right, and then of course the chair that's down here too, let's save him. Okay, so all of these are really easy, and I say easy just because you've already done the hard work. You've specified the product. I feel like that's the part that takes the longest. We'll do sway chair, and this goes on my desktop. So now on my desktop lives 3 images, right? The 2 swatches plus the chair. What would I do with those? Could I attach them to an email? Of course. Could I create a presentation? Of course. Let's do a really fast PowerPoint. Now when I say fast, I mean fast. Okay, you're going to pick your favorite tool, whether it's PowerPoint or something else, but just think of PowerPoint as like my blank slate, if you would. So I'm just going to bring in a quick slide. Now this slide, all I brought in was a slide that has a title because I probably want to say, this is the Sway Lounge Chair, whatever the beautiful description is, right? Now all I need to do is pull in those images. They're out here on my desktop. Because I saved them on my desktop, or even if you put them in a folder, you can go to that folder, and I'm going to just be as lazy as possible. I'm literally going to just drag and drop them in, right? Drag and drop, drag and drop. Now, again, I'm being lazy. I'm just letting them kind of sit on top of each other because in the newer versions of PowerPoint, you can probably notice this. I close it all the time because I want to get it out of my way, but it's super powerful. There's all sorts of design ideas that are super fast, easy mock-ups of that example, without having to spend a ton of time creating a perfect template. Again, a lot of times I'm just looking for kind of that quick impact, that quick idea. Some of these look better than others, of course, But as you can imagine, I'm really trying to highlight or help someone understand the selections that they've been focusing on, okay? Just a couple minutes. Now, again, I'm being very, very product focused, but we're just getting a little bit better each time, right? We can start in Worksheet, just do one simple image. We could take it to the next level, maybe take all of those assets, like our images of the furniture plus the images of all of the textures out and create a presentation that way. Or, of course, we can take it kind of to the next level. Okay, now we're going to go to the drawing. This is probably the part you've been waiting for. You can pick your favorite drawing tool. This can happen either in Giza or in CAP. Either way, here's an example in Giza. Here's an example in CAP. It's the exact same drawing. Okay, I'm actually in CAP Complete, but it's the exact same drawing. It's a layout. Again, I pulled a few products in from KI, and these circles that you see on the left are those lovely sway chairs that I was just working with. The only reason I used some of these products is because they were from the newer catalog, so I wanted to kind of try them out and see how they looked. But as you can see, I have a little bit of a space defined here in that there's some columns and some windows and such. But for the most part, I would probably take the time in my drawings, whether it's in Giza or in CAP or CAP Complete, and think about how you might want to present this before you go to visual impression. And the reason I say that is because we can very quickly and easily go to visual impression by defining different scenes, meaning do you want to look at this area versus that area? But because this area is so condensed, I tried to do a little bit of physical distancing by going every other desk, but get creative here. I've got kind of three different areas, I'm going to say. So over here, there's kind of some lounge kind of chairs and sofas. There's more of the desking and a few mobile pieces in the middle with some panels, of course, dividing things out. Another slight lounge area with a little bit of open desking. And then this is that new wiggle room product, which you'll see the 3D of it in a second. It's one of those cool kind of walk-through private phone booth examples. So if I know ahead of time that I want to render some of these and really focus on one area, let's say this, maybe this could be kind of like a shared space or maybe like a simple, flexible reception desk, making up a couple stories here, but you get the idea. This space could be used a number of ways. So I would take the time to make sure that I am tagging these separately because I can sort and visualize by tag in visual impression. So here's an example. What if I came in and I say, I want this to be Area 1, Area 2, Area 3. You pick your number. I think I have a few of these tagged already, so I'm going to start with Area 5, only because I can't remember which number I left off on. If I say that's Area 5 and I hit assign, okay, so for CAP and CAP Complete, you're using assign. If you're in Giza, you're selecting the items and you're using change tag. And in this case, I assigned a value into the alias 1 field, but you could do into any of these, alias 1, 2, 3, building, floor, department, person. Any of them are going to be really, really helpful for what we're about to do. So let's take a look at this. I'm going to just use CAP info, and you can see, yeah, there's Area 1. If I look at this middle section, I called that Area 3. And I bet you this used to be 2. I just overwrote it for 5. And this one's Area 4. Okay, so I'm just skipping an Area 2. So I basically broke it down into different areas, right? And we'll save this. Now let's visualize it. Now, I'm going to warn you that I have already opened this in visual impression, so I do have some finishes defined, not the lava or, I already forgot the other name of the other finish that I had picked earlier in Worksheet. I think I did more of a blue and green color scheme, but whatever the color scheme is, this is where I really want to show it off, right, for the client to be able to understand and see. We'll talk about some of the architectural elements and things in a bit, but here's the overall space, right? There's that sway chair, kind of a cooler color combination. Here's the other simple area, and there's that cool wiggle room example. So whatever products we're working with, when they're enriched like this, it's very easy to visualize them and see them. So I want to show them off. But some of you might say, well, maybe I don't know a whole lot about the actual room. I know I've already given you a few elements, but let's say that you don't know enough to be able to show that. I'm going to very, very quickly come down into the ribbon and just say hide room architecture. Okay? That's the fastest way to turn off the floor, the walls, and all those architectural elements just to keep things simple, right? We see this a lot in typical presentations and anything where you have, just focusing on what we're selling right now. Perfect. Okay, so that's easy to visualize. Now, going back to what I just did a second ago with all that tagging, remember I have my areas defined. You call them whatever you wanted back in your drawing. Here's how to work with it. Well, if I open up this little palette off to the side, okay, this is all of my information about my project. And normally when you open this up, I should say not my project, but all of the parts and pieces in my project. This is like everything that's in that worksheet file if I'd gone that far. But initially, we show it to you by description, which is helpful when you're looking for something like a sway chair. I just look for sway, easy enough. But in this case, I don't really care about the name of the product because maybe I don't even remember it because I drew this days ago. I want to know, where is it? So see, I just right-clicked at the top of this menu and change this to alias 1. Because now I can very easily see, and I can sort this just by clicking on it, so it's a lot like Worksheet. I can go through and I can sort these areas. So here's what I'm going to do. I only want to look at one specific area and present it to my client. So I can come down and say, well, let's go ahead and hide everything. I'm going to say hide enriched. Enriched just means that the catalog had finishes built into it. If you're working with some of your manufacturers that don't have enriched catalogs, that's okay too. You would just hit hide basic. Okay, so you can hide basically all of the items within the project. Then I'm going to go through and I'm going to pre-select. So I clicked the first Area 5 product. I hit my Shift key, pick the last Area 5 product. Those are the same shortcuts as Worksheet. You hold Shift down to make a consecutive selection. And then down at the bottom, I could check Visible. What did I just do? I only turned on my Area 5. Oh, I must have not grabbed the table that was over there. It's all right. But now I've got all of those items. I can turn those back off if I want. What does Area 1 look like? I can grab all of those and make those visible. They were over here. And what does Area 3 look like? Pretty much everything else except for that wiggle room item. Okay, so I'm selecting them all and clicking visible. Where did all my tables go? All my desks went somewhere. All right, I'll come back and look for them in a minute. But you get the idea. Think about the tagging before you get to visual impression. Once I'm in visual impression, it would take a lot of clicking to like one thing at a time to figure out, where did they go? Why can't I see them anymore? All right, let's go back and I can show all. So you can see I use that little visibility option a lot. There's a little up arrow here that has kind of built-in settings to be able to get really quickly to turn off or on certain items. But that tagging I feel like is just such a much easier way. Yes, I could have created scenes, but especially when you have like shared panels and really, spaces that kind of blend quickly into one another. And honestly, I only want to render the architecture once. So if I build all that out, then I have that once and I can really focus on area at a time. All right, now a couple other really common questions that I get a lot from a training perspective. I'm like, okay, how do I take it to that next level? How can I present with just knock your socks off renderings? Here's a couple tricks. One of them, of course, is going to be talking about some of the finishes. So let's talk about flooring for a second. If I come into materials, we all know that if you've been using visual impression for a little while, that there's a few things in here, but that's literally just so that you can pick materials. Obviously, this is not every wood floor on the planet, and it probably never will be. There are so many suppliers out there, but I also have a couple cool websites. So I'm going to show real quick on a website that I came across pretty recently that I'm fascinated with. It's been working out really well for architectural finishes. It's called architectures.org. So architectures, it's really hard to say, .org. And on this website, you can launch this app and you can go through and you can kind of create your own custom things. But the idea is you're looking for a good texture that looks realistic, but it's also seamless. If you've ever done any classes with me or any presentations in the past, you know that my usual go-to is Google seamless images. If you're looking for wood, I would type in light wood seamless image and try to find something that way. But check this out. If I come through here, I can look through their filters, of course, or look through some of their quick images, and I can literally pick one of these. And here's an example of a very nice looking wood. They call it concrete, so maybe it's a stamped concrete wood looking thing. You can edit this. You can preview it at a different scale if you want to. But let's see what this looks like. Notice up here it tells us the size of the swatch. This is incredible because it's huge. I don't have to sit there and try to kind of map together little swatches to make a really big swatch. This is like 78 by 52. Of course, this opened up on my other screen, but here's the image. I can import that into Visual Impression. Okay, so keep that in mind. I've got that image kind of off to the side ready to go for me. So another source that I have found super helpful recently, another website, it's called unsplash.com. And there are a lot of photo websites out there. The reason I'm picking this one is because it's free. So I don't have a paid service or a way to log into something to pull images. So this is a really, really commonly used one. So where would you use something like this? Remember that image I showed a little bit earlier that had it looked like a mirrored reflection to the next room. So I've seen some renderings where they've gone through and they've done, I'll type in office space, for example. What if one of your walls, you brought in an image like this? So you're giving the illusion to that next space. Or what if you're working on a really cool project? The ones that are always so impressive in the Visual Impression Award contest is the ones with these really kind of bold patterns and really impressive prints. Notice that there's some categories, if I go back here, that you can go under wallpapers. You could search under nature. You can go textures and patterns, and there's all of these really cool kind of big, impressive images. Let me come in and I think there was a really cool Ferris wheel one. This is super random, but what if you had, a cool, what if one of the walls had this big black and white image on it? You can even go in and you can tell it what type of orientation you want. What if we wanted a landscape image? Because maybe we have a wall that's longer than it is tall. Okay, so then I can find a good image that I want to bring in, and I literally can take this and download it. Okay, it just downloads it as the name of the person who had uploaded it to the site. Now here's how I will use all this. Let's go back to Visual Impression. Remember, I have a floor sample and I have my crazy Ferris wheel example. Maybe that could go on this back wall. So on the flooring, now I can go up to Visual Materials and add that flooring in. One second as it's open on my second screen, so I need to pull it over. And if you haven't worked in here a lot, there are some suppliers and manufacturers that are pre-built that you can shop through. But so often we are sourcing so many different products from so many different areas. I'm just going to call this a webinar and give myself a little palette that I can bring some of my own finishes in. I'm going to select. I'm clicking a little fast. Remember, this is recorded, so if you haven't gone through these steps, but I know a lot of you have used Visual Impression before, so you've seen this. And let's make sure I've got the right image. And it's looking for PNGs. That's why I think it downloaded as a JPEG. There's my concrete. All right, so I'm just going to call it wood. And we'll make it wood. We'll set a few properties to it, and then we'll look at the size. And I've already forgotten what that scale was back on that site, so I'm just going to peek at it, 78 by 52. Awesome. 78, 52. Save that away. That's ready to go. While I'm here, let's go ahead and bring in our other image from Unsplash, which is just our crazy Ferris wheel image. Maybe I'll do paint. This doesn't have as good of a category. Now this one, when it comes to the size, many images are sized on the web in pixels, not necessarily in a true physical size, right? So a lot of times when I'm putting things on an item, like a wall or a picture frame, like that funny picture we saw earlier, I want to try to understand approximately the size of that thing. So I believe one of the walls in my space earlier was, it was like just shy, I think, of 300 inches. I know that seems awkward to type inches, and let me do this to maintain aspect ratio so I don't have to type it in twice. And let's save that away. And we can always change this. I'm kind of guesstimating on that second one because that one's not quite as exact, right? So when I pick my floor, I go look under palettes. I come in here and I look under webinar, and there is my crazy but amazing image for my flooring. And then for my wall, the only trick with wall is don't forget to uncheck the top box that says apply to all. And I can come in and I can do my accent wall based on the palette where I want this kind of fun Ferris wheel. But interesting, it pulled in, there we go. I'm like, for 1 second it pulled in one I tested before the session. So crazy color combinations, sorry if that's offensive because it's pretty wild comparing these. But just what an impact with just a couple extra clicks. Again, that's taking it a little bit more time, but getting a much more impressive kind of look and feel and kind of idea of that space. Now, this all becomes worth it when you think of the presentation itself, because once I've got this set up, once I go through and I start doing some higher quality finishes and I start taking snapshots, all of the assets of this project, meaning any snapshot I take or any finish that I added, is easily accessible in the presentation section. Okay? What I mean by that is I'm going to take a quick snapshot here. And honestly, I do a lot of snapshots of hidden lines as well, especially if there's certain things that I'm really trying to point out with space and detail of what's happening here. And when I go over to presentation, notice that I have all of those images. Let's make them a little bit bigger. Here's the 2 images that we were just working with, so you can kind of see them quickly. And we have all of the product that we've been working with and all of the swatches we've been working with. So similar to what I was showing a little bit earlier with PowerPoint and saying, well, yeah, let's just try to, as quick as possible, put together a few things so the client really understands that space. You can do that right from visual impression too, right? So all I need to do here is have those images, and literally I can drag them and drop them into my PowerPoint slide. We'll make that active so you can see it. All right, that was just a drag and drop. I didn't have to save it. I didn't have to do a whole lot of extra steps or work with that. I can just pull that over and I could do individual images too, or individual swatches as I need. So hopefully that makes it a little bit easier, just because we're trying to save time. We're trying to make this as quick and as productive as possible, right? I don't know where the time has gone today because it is already 45 minutes in, so I need to talk about just a couple last little things. I hope that a few of these examples help with just some of the processes that you're working with today. If there's anything in the future that you need, you can also connect with us on social media too. You'll find us at 2020 Spaces.